So
There we go. There we go, boys. I just launched it live, episode 129, the Lumber Word podcast. We took a week off last week. Bart, you're back, and it's not from an errant email this time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you did well enough last time. Greg's like, dude, let's have Bart on tomorrow.
Well, I missed you. I listened to the episode and I went, oh wow, yeah, no, Bart's got game. Let's bring him. Let's bring him.
Right. You're probably the only guy that's ever said I had game. So that's
right. Well,
where do you want to start, Ash?
Well, we'll get into it. I kind of wanted to start with Charles being out. Matt is at the inland outing in Coeur d'Alene, and so he's going to be out for the week. So Bart, I hope you got a little bit of insight on some of the U.S. species. I'm not as well versed on it, but I had some questions on that. But
can we just go right into that, because we're coming down to the wire on this futures expiration. I got a lot of questions.
Sure. I got some of your notes there. I think I can answer some of them, but
if hem fur and white fur are deliverable on the futures contract, what is the market price delivered Chicago today on 2x4 random length hem fur / white fur?
I wish you wouldn't have asked that question, because I honestly don't know.
So Beamer was telling us.
So you don't have game.
Well, hold on.
I don't have game. But if you wanted to talk about Doug fir coastal studs, I could kind of give you an idea there.
Because Ashley, you and I were looking, and we saw that what was print 580,
510. So 510, rough and dirty off the coast. Because it's going to mirror what studs are. You're about $100 at Chicago. So it's basically print is saying hem fir coastal hemlock is worth $610. Maybe somebody listening could chime in and say, no, I bought it X or whatever. But if you're going off print, it's basically saying it's worth $610 Chicago.
But then when you look at inland, it's $520, and
they're using $61 freight on random on inland.
$61 freight. Yeah.
That's what the freight is. I asked them, so that would show it $580. Beamer said it was $580 to $585 on coastal hem fur last week. And I think a lot of the coastal mills tell us to use $100. I think it's actually closer to $80 on the coastal, is my guess. But
sure.
Let's
I know when I buy studs, they charge like $100.
Is that Texas or Chicago? Okay, so let's just pick inland hem fur and say it's $580 Chicago, and for a futures tally.
Okay.
How about now? For a futures tally, it'd probably be a little bit, but you're still the furs are somewhere around under 600 Chicago. So since it's not a spruce contract anymore as much, how is hem fur going to play into convergence?
Well, I mean,
do you guys hear that?
You guys know this, that you've been able to EFP anything, right? Big difference between delivery and EFP, right? Not to complicate it. But lumber rarely delivers. I think when we were going over some of that stuff, when they were looking to change the contract, I want to say Candace or somebody said that they had like one lumber contract deliver in the last whatever, right? So as far as looking at like EFP, it's a mill needs to step up or have a partner to step up and say, hey, we're willing to EFP. And it makes a ton of sense to me, because if cash market is 580, 585, let's say, and you can EFP at or deliver, pardon me, at 6. I just clicked off of it. I think we traded up to 615. Why wouldn't you? 614 is last trade. So, I mean, why wouldn't you? And that's the big head scratcher to me, why more producers don't use it and why they haven't used it more in the past.
I mean, that's, then like my next thing is, I look at it, I go, well, I mean, that should apply some pressure on July, which obviously, the spread's moving out. But we hear that there's a lot of interest at this point by, people to buy July and sell September at, 50, 55. I think the spread's trading
at 58 this morning.
58. Yeah, this morning, 58. What do we think about that?
Not to give away all my trade secrets, I've done a few of those because it's a heck of a basis. But I think if you look at it, and you guys chime in on this, I mean, September has the new AR6 kind of baked into it, right? That's why it's carrying this huge premium. It's made pricing jobs, or at least some of the stuff I do, forward pricing. I had a guy call me just the other day saying, hey, looking at this, for it was down the road. I was just cutting to the chase on the front end here, man. It's going to be $60, $70 premium. So I think SEP has some of that baked into it. But
I hear there's a lot of Q4 business, September and beyond start business that's just held short at this point. It's not covered.
Correct.
I mean, there's very, very little has been covered, put it that way, if any.
And anyway, I had a guy one time, I've been doing this for a long time. You guys know that. And he says to me, he goes, I don't know how you can sleep at night at times. He goes, with all the contracts you got rolling around, da, 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 da. And I said, dude, I sleep like a baby. It's like, you're willing to go out and buy 50 carloads of lumber, not knowing if you had them sold, just kind of thinking the market's going to go up. I might have 50 contracts on. This was the old contract, but I can get in and out tomorrow if I'm wrong, So speaking to the masses here, it's there. It's a tool to use.
Bart,
all of us here on this call can help you use it too. So.
Bart, like you, Greg, and I all know people that put one contract on and they are so scared they can't wait to either trade out of it at a 50-cent profit or a $20 loss, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, look at you have to have metal to trade it, but when you put it up against some of the basis opportunities, I mean, look at $58. Just do the annualized return on that when that basis comes in, what that return is. Now, you don't make that back to back and stuff for trading stuff on a regular basis.
Heck no. And then if you want to even dive deeper in the weeds, look at some of these under what I would call historically undervalued items and look how large that basis is. I'm just going to pick let's use 2x410, which, hey, they've been undervalued for two years now and continue to be, but let's just, like a spruce 2x410. I mean, you got a $200 basis there, I mean, rough and dirty,
Let's pick another item, which I'm going to buy when I get off the call here. If somebody does 2x6, 1650 16s in spruce, right? Trading at pretty much the same price as 16-foot 2 and better, going into seasonal strength in 6-inch and MSR strength, right? Just stuff like that. I mean, so Greg, back to your point, why doesn't anybody EFP it in the West? I don't think they have people at their offices capable of doing it. Just being honest, or that want to do it because people above them don't understand it. It's always funny. Some of the actual traders at the offices understand how to trade futures at some of these mills, but some of the people in the C-suite don't quite get it, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Or then you get this. I mean, how many times have
let's not disparage any of
no, not at all. I'm just saying
or listeners by doing that. I wanted to move on to something which I felt it was interesting. I saw this come up this morning and I went, mortgage applications hit a 2-year high last week. The rate on mortgage rates has been ticking down. It had a kind of a historically wide range to the 10-year, but it has been moving down. It's like 6.5%. You combine that with, what we've seen in prices, both of existing and new homes coming down. Are we setting ourselves up for, a Q3, Q4 better demand than we anticipate?
Yes, I think.
No, maybe.
Well,
I hope so.
I think any surprise at this
so.
point will be to the upside on housing, right?
I think at this point, you have to look at the demand saying, I mean, demand has been punked through the first half of the year, basically flat, which is, if anybody listened to us in the third and fourth quarter last year, is kind of what we were expecting. And I guess if you're saying if there's a surprise on demand, it's going to be better. It's probably not going to be worse. I mean, we got the big, beautiful bill. I mean, it's big. It's big. It's beautiful. It's a bill.
Yeah. So we got a little bit of bump on copper the other day. But so I want to go back to this. I heard today talking to one of the mills that for the first time, Bart, since this last go around, I had a Eastern mill quote me on some shipments with, if I bought it, I was responsible for any CVD or AD that comes across, which I won't buy that because I don't understand. That's too open-ended for me, but I had a couple of those today. Have you heard anything new on the CVD and AD? There's like some stuff floating around now, how they're going to postpone it and push both of them a little bit, announce them at the same time, or have you heard anything new on that?
I haven't heard anything new. I heard that rumor, I guess, a couple weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, where they might just put them all together, but I haven't heard anything new. And along those lines, I had a customer call me yesterday, and he got it, but he was just like, "Hey, I just want some clarity here so I can help my salespeople and all this stuff." Because this is happening, right? Basically. And I was just like, yes. I mean, the anti-dumping and the duty, this isn't a Trump tariff thing. This is something that is happening. And I don't see how, like even if Carney and Trump got together, that nothing's going to be renegotiated as far as this softwood lumber agreement or softwood non-agreement or whatever you want to call it in the next 10 days. So this is happening. And so like you asked, I had, a couple of mills, the same thing. Yesterday I was looking for stuff and they were like, yeah, we're out to the 28th. And this one particular mill was like, we don't know what we're going to do yet because it's a 13%. They were a target mill. So he goes, it was a 13% bump for them. And he goes, right now we're just not quoting it. And so I have a question for you guys along those lines. If you look at where we were back in May, low print on West was 437. How much do you guys think the new tariffs is already baked into the market?
All of it.
Not tariffs, pardon me. I used the wrong tariff. I mean, the new duty and anti-dumping is baked into the market.
All of it, and then some. If you think about the reality is that, like right now, Q2 return for Canadian mills prices, has been really good. I mean, prices have moved up, and they're still on the lower CVD AD. But if you increase their cost by 15 to 20%, whether it's somewhere between the 1st of August and the 1st of October, you're kind of right back at, oh, okay, yeah, we're not making any money yet. So nobody's gonna increase production into that. One of the other things is I'm trying to get a read, Bart, and maybe you have some insight in this. How much lower on a run rate are European shipments coming in to U.S. ports? Is it like down 10%? Is it down 20%? I know that, we have several of our suppliers, haven't been shipping anything, particularly when you look at the 2x6 price, they can't touch that.
Sure.
2x4 16s at the current price, are kind of, okay. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your sense?
Very good question, Greg. I don't have an exact percentage. I could get that for you, though. It's not going to help us on this call, but I could get that for you from our our import department that tracks shipments. I could get that for you, but I mean it's down quite a bit, right? I mean, I think you're right on it. Whether it be 10%, 20%. One of the mills that we do programs with, the only thing that works for them right now is 2x4, and it's predominantly they're 5-meter mill, so it's 2x4 16s. I mean, that's the only thing that works for them to the States. Even the wides don't work for them at the moment. Yeah.
Oh God, no. I want to take a little walk down memory lane, Ash, if I could, and I was looking at this year versus last year. Last year, second quarter, we had a similar situation in that the AD and CVD was going to double, was going to go from 8% to 15%, and in May, June, July, mills Canadian mills pushed wood over the border to get in front of that. And the one thing that I found interesting, if you remember last June, July, it was probably June and it started to move early July. 2x6 16s were low 400s FOB US ports, and 2x4 16s were low 500s. If you fast forward from that point until like September, October, 2x6 16s went up to $750 US ports, and 2x4 16s went up to like low 600s.
So where did 2x6 16s top out at last year? Did you say
$750?
Are we going to see that again this year? Nobody expects that.
God, I mean, nothing would make me happier than to see that.
Might be long if you.
I mean, full disclosure. Our basis position is heavily weighted to 2x6 right now, and right now we're just kind of like that. Gnawing our arm off, like turning dollars.
Yeah, I had a guy, friend of the show, call me yesterday and say, "Hey, I think 2x6 is a good basis." I'm like, "Yeah, you said that a month and a half ago, and we put some out." That's the great thing about basis. When people recognize it, they've already had it on from X to X, right? So,
right.
And
I resemble that.
Yeah, so 2x6 16s, and this is Western print. And obviously, I know Euro trades, especially when there's a lot of them, but averaged 447 FOB mill last year, and they went. I got my 224 data up here, so if I'm boring you guys with this, our low print was 400 mil, was 325 mil on July 11th. That was our low print, Western spruce FOB mill. 325. Wow.
2x6 is that?
What was the high print?
16s.
What was the high print?
On July 11th print, or week 27 of 2024. Low print was 325 mil.
And what was the high print?
High was bear with me here. Sorry, I got to kind of funnel through here.
Greg, what's your guess?
I guess it was over 600.
640? I don't know.
You guys are pretty close. 658 on week 47.
Which is like the last week in November, right?
Yeah, November 28th. And these might not be the exact print date. I just mirror that for that Friday. This is my.
But you, yeah. So it doubled in price. It doubled in price
to do the math in my head. Yeah, I'm not smart enough.
Doubled in price in 5 months.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, can history repeat itself? They say that it doesn't. They say that history doesn't repeat itself.
Yeah, it could go to 800 this time.
But I hope for your sake, Greg, you're right.
But Bart, you had a good point about there's not many Greg too. There's not many Euro mills that are shipping 2x6 16s over right now. It just doesn't.
You know, the challenge with a great trade like that, Bart, is what ends up happening is like, you know, you start selling them, and then, you know, by the time it really gets to the great, like the best returning number, you've sold all you had. It's like, I mean, I was like, I'm like, I don't know how'd that happen. I don't know. It was like, it just happened.
100%. I mean, it not to sit here and talk basis all day long, but I don't know about you guys.
We can do it though, can't we? It's our show.
But no, like you were saying, Ash is, you know, 2x6 16 MSR. I mean, I was looking here, just kind of doing the math here real quick. I mean, you have $125 basis on 2 and better. But I always look at if that is $125 on paper, I mean, what's the real basis you actually capture? And it's
50.
Yeah, I would say in my experience, it's a lot less. I mean, obviously I'm not very good at it, but it is a lot less. But still, when you have something like that, I mean, you got to pay attention, right? I mean, just like, you know, Greg, you were talking about here, the spread being at $55, $58, probably should be paying attention to that. So.
Yeah, and that's a little like for people on the show, we give away a lot of information, Bruce, and MSR is within 10 or 15 bucks of that right now, 2100, 1650. And you're going to use it in the next 3 or 4 months. You should, especially if you're an MSR user, you should be buying that, in my opinion, because
100%.
you get a bump from 2x6 and you get a bump from the MSR that moves late in the third quarter of most years.
And follow along that 2x6 trade. If you look at, you know, like for midweek print, you have in September, you have conservatively here, you have a $145 basis.
Seems like a lot.
Yeah, seems like something should go up.
So we're, you know, so we're currently, you know, cheerleading our position in 2x6 and making a recommendation to all of our viewers that they buy as much as they can store and afford in 2x6 right now. Is that what we're saying?
Well, we're saying it's not a recommendation, but what we're doing is doing that.
I mean, yeah, but also you got to look at Sun Yellow Pine midweek. You know, it was still 294, 292, and 310. So you know,
yeah, and I mean,
what's the little disclaimer down always down below is like, This you trade with risk, and past trades don't necessarily, you know, blah blah.
Yeah, no. We have Bart. We have the whole disclaimer at the end of the podcast. You know, you want to consult your financial advisor for your particular situation. Absolutely.
And the other caveat is sometimes being early on a trade is also being wrong.
Yeah,
I resemble that.
and since I'm a guest, you guys can just blame everything on me.
Well, so look, I wanted to ask, since Bart, you asked about how much price was baked in already on spruce, and I guess my question is, okay, how much purchasing has been done in anticipation of this that's potentially stole from buying in the next few months, or has there not been any? What are your customers saying? Where's the inventory now in the pipeline? Have people bought more than they normally do? Because we went through a 3-month stretch there where people were paying up premiums for prompt trucks. Hell, Greg was taking orders and hanging up the phone and getting an email, "Where's my truck that I just gave you 5 seconds ago?"
Oh, you guys get those too?
Yeah. Yeah.
I got that today too. Yeah. Yeah, that's my wild card, Ash, is trying to get a feel. I mean, I've had a couple conversations with some people that, you know, have given me varying degrees. I've had some, you know, like big pro type people saying, no, we're continuing to stay in our lane and only buy within, you know, our window. And we haven't bulked up anything, but, you know, we're just buying regularly. I've had other people that have indicated, yeah, I think we bought a little bit of extra in front of in front of summer shutdowns / increases in AD, CVD. You would think by accident the default would have been to buy a little extra, right?
Yeah, yeah. You would think. I guess my question is, are you feeling that on your end? Like Greg and I made a joke, Bart, this week. You know what? We could sell 2x4 14s, 2x4 16s, and 2x4 104 and 5/8 all day long, right? Because that seems to be what everybody wants to buy. But And I guess that's what makes me feel that there's not been a big buildup with all the other lengths that are still kind of hanging out there a little bit, maybe getting a little play.
I think in general, and this is general statement, so retail community, don't shoot me on this call. I think in general, I think the retail community is not heavily overbought. In fact, I know some of the nationals, this was a few weeks ago, were like told to get their inventories down to a certain level of like 45 days, 60 days, whatever, compared to carrying 90. But I think some of the talk about the jobbers and people that are short, I think some of that has been purchased, where it's looking at the math of like, okay, if I buy this, sit on it, pay the interest, storage, all this stuff for the next 6 months, is that better than using, one of us, to do the forward price or whatever, right? So I do think some of that has been bought, quite a bit of that by some of the, what I would call the sharper buyers, smart buyers. So the retail community, I don't think is overly heavy. That's just my opinion, but doesn't mean I'm right. But what do you guys think?
I think it, like I said, I think the default is they'd maybe have a little bit of extra, but that it depends on the player, right? I mean, I think there's some that have a little bit extra and some haven't, but then on average, it's, if you go, hey, 9 is like loaded to the gills, and and 2 is I've got nothing in the pavement in the yard. I think we're probably in that. I think we're probably like 6.5, right? A little bit more than halfway, right?
Yeah,
but I mean, which just means that buyers have to be in the market every day, every week. They can't take a week off.
What I noticed, and some of the big retailers, I've noticed some of them, and I think, Greg, I heard you talking to somebody the other day. There's always sometimes disconnect between the retail salespeople out in the field selling a job, and once it gets to the buyers, what they need to buy, right? And what was promised and said. And I think these salesmen in the field are really working hard to get orders. And when they get them, I've seen like orders come through as they're getting orders. I think they're getting a lot of, uncertainty or pushback on the end use level, on the builder's level, because there's a lot of uncertainty there. But what I've seen is when they do get an order, they try to cover it with profit. They got to cover it because I'm getting things. Hey, I need to cover 10 trucks of this, 7 of this, 4 of this at these numbers. Can you do it? And they're usually pretty realistic numbers, because they don't want to hold them right now. So they're seeing that, but I don't think there's enough business at the field level for them to go out and they're not just going to speculate at these numbers either. From what I see now, pine maybe is a different story. If you're going to get a certain amount of business, I mean, especially 6-inch pine and some other stuff, would you buy a big chunk of that if you were the seller of that, or would you just sit and let it keep trading the way it is?
I'm not a pine guy, but personally I would. And I know one of my jobber friends, he was looking at making a play on the other thing too is OSB. I mean, how expensive that is.
Yeah.
And his problem in this particular case, where his job was that isn't going to start till Q4, was the facilities he used, they didn't have enough space.
Good point. Yeah.
I think some of this Q4 biz and stuff like that has been covered, but it's been covered in the cash. And I'm talking the multifamily sector, predominantly, in this deal. But
I'm just looking at 7/16 Southwest is 205 now. That's that's getting right down to the.
So
down
I mean,
to the,
I weigh more than that.
My question is. Just barely, just that and a jelly donut. Just that and a jelly donut. That's it.
I'm looking to get to the Western Canada weight at 190.
Anyway,
so
sorry.
When I look at I'm sorry we don't have Charles, because he's always like got somewhere between a wealth of knowledge and frontier gibberish in him. But I think the only announcement that we've seen on curtailment of production has been the Canfor, correct?
Yes, and then
That's all I've seen.
Then the market sold off like 2 days later on 4-inch number 2.
I mean, because if I remember correctly, when we did the math with Charles on what the Gatewood price was, that the mill return at these current numbers is, I mean, basically they're barely getting the cost of fiber here, right? So I mean, depending on your production, what the profile is, et cetera, et cetera. But so I guess that's the thing I'm wondering. I'm going, can actually, the other funny thing was that a week after we had that call, we saw the announcement that Hampton was gonna build a couple of mills.
Yeah. It's interesting. After that announcement, I've always found the people that are long and tell me they're long always raise the cost of production when they tell me what it is on everything. Like, wait a second. A couple months ago, you said it was this, and now it's this. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's right. You're long now.
But I mean, you look at yellow pine prices, and they're just, I mean, they're incredibly cheap. And you have a hard time looking and seeing that, 6, 8, and 10 inch is going to stay sub $300 FOB mill for any, for much more of an extended time.
I'm not a pine guy, but I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, we're not. We pretend to be pine guys every once in a while.
But I went back and ran charts on the wides and pine, and I'm like, oh, this has got to have a ton of upside. And if you look post-COVID, I mean, and as Bart said, that you need to, you never catch 100% of a move. Like, some of these items, they can move, but they haven't had this in the last 3 years. Haven't had moves like they used to have, like on 2x10, 2x12, those type items, straight lengths.
And again, I think that's because we've been in a falling demand environment, and those are great items for mills to produce, and they kind of compress the market down, right?
Yeah, I was all excited about them until I looked at charts, and I'm like, okay, well, I have an upside of maybe making $30 or $40. It's like, what's of something that I don't know anything about, which means I'm going to have to sell it to my competition or somebody that wants to pants me.
Let's talk about something that we don't know anything about, that we thought we knew something about, which was finger joint studs, Ash.
Finger joint studs. Like, Bart, you're a Texas market guy, right? So yes. What's the mafia down in Texas? Is the mafia down in Texas trading finger joint studs and doing contracts on them? I'm just asking the question because the bid is like $200 and the offer is like $600. And I talk to customers that have contracts on them, and they're like, this obscure, we look at all the different species and then give people the cheapest price. I don't understand the finger joint market down there at all.
So I don't know what you're saying when you say the mafia. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What I mean is,
I don't think we want to discourage those people either.
No, whoever has, it seems to me for the last 2 or 3 months trying to sell finger joint studs, everybody says I'm full of contract. Is that all contracted finger joint?
I mean, the guy that I should have this call, Steve Culbertson from our office. He's at the Inland, but there's a good chunk of them on contract. But there's a fair amount of cash that's traded. I mean, there is a fair amount of cash. So I think it's kind of like everything else. And I know I can only speak for a couple of the big chains that I deal with that.
Yeah.
During COVID, where some of these guys that weren't as heavily contracted, they kind of upped their contracts after what we went through. And I know two of the big items in Texas is finger joint, and then also OSB. Trading cash on those two items this year has been very, very tough because of, like you just said, contract fulfillments or contracts are covering that. Now, some of that's going to be changing because I know there is some finger joint producers that are going to be limiting their production, especially with the new anti-dumping and all this stuff coming in. So if you're not pressed to totally get rid of them, Ash, maybe hang on to them for a little bit.
We're more trying to seek to understand because, maybe like we had 9 trucks in Fort Worth, print's 580. We were offering them well below that and crickets. Mm-hmm. We'll keep working them.
Yeah. We can talk off air and I can kind of fill you like with Steve. Steve kind of handles some of the on the ground stuff down there. And there's some, you talk about swings. There's wild swings, 50 over, 50 under.
Yeah, and I think people mix species on that for enlarged spruce,
correct.
Eastern white. So I get it. Correct. I was just more curious. Just real question. We're July 9th right now. Do we flail around here at these levels? When's the next inflection point? Beginning of August? When are we going to see some kind of move one direction or another?
Aren't we moving? Are we moving in a direction? Aren't we moving up?
We're grinding, right? But I think you made the comment this morning. I think that we just the really move for the next 2 to 3 weeks is just grinding higher, slowly grinding higher, right? On the items.
I personally don't see any big, unless the demand component changes dramatically, which you touched on the mortgage application. That is very, very, very encouraging. Unless the demand component dramatically changes, this is just my opinion, dramatically changes here over the next 30, 60, 90 days. I don't see any of these big boom, big bang, $100, $200 things. But I don't see the short side of it being a real good play here, especially with what's going to be coming down the pike here in just 2-3 weeks. And it'll be interesting to see how mills play it. If you guys, we've been around the block long enough that if all of a sudden you just tack on 20%, you might as well go on vacation, right? Because you're not going to get a lot of business. That's why I brought up the question is how much of this 20% increase is already baked in, and we've moved from, we're up approximately. I'm just going to use Western spruce 2x4s. We're up approximately 15% off, low to high, 15, 12%. So how much of that is already baked in? But I just, it's going to be a supply-driven market, and I just see supply continuing to shrink, especially as when this, comes into play here at the end of this month.
There's nothing that says that there's nothing that says that there's more supply coming. It's only going to be less, and we've moved up. I don't know that how much it's of increasing cost is baked into the price as much as we've quietly lost enough supply at the current levels of demand. And the wild card is certainly going to be demand in Q3, Q4.
Correct.
That's the wild card. If it improves even marginally, then prices are going to be higher.
So what do you guys like right now to buy or to sell? What I got the rundown from the mills today, and everything looked pricey to me, except certain things didn't. Certain things looked okay, but those are certain things that we probably already have a full stomach on right now, which is a disappointing in a way. But what do you guys like right now?
Well, the momentum items, Ash, you talked about it. And if we're talking about spruce, momentum items 2x4, 14, 16s, and 9-foot studs. Undervalued, the most undervalued. We talked about that also. It's 2x6, 2x6, yep. Anything undervalued. So, and then Bart highlighted, if you go into 2x4s. 2x4 10s and 12s, really undervalued.
Right.
So, the 10 foot's interesting in that obviously, 10 footers make 9 footers. So, there's a natural kind of a tailwind to the 10 footers. I did the work. I looked at 10 footers and I said, 2x4 10 footers easily could rally. The market could do nothing, and they could move up $60, $70 a thousand.
100%. I mean,
and still be quote unquote, fair valued.
I have, which I was trying to turn it so you could see it, but my historical stuff, it gives you a green if it's undervalued. I'm looking here. Greg just said the items.
Yeah.
I have the same thing, Bart. It's right here. I got it right here.
This isn't proprietary? No.
It's proprietary, yes. The Greg 9000.
It's 6-inch. It's 2x410s, 2x412s. My deal here, it's Doug First studs, 2x4 9s, 10s, and 2x6 9s.
Bart, what are the 2x4 and 2x6 9s out of the Pacific Northwest getting into Texas, Chicago, those areas for right now?
2x4 9s, mills have kind of bumped up a little bit, but so Chicago, you're like 575. Texas, that would put them in there about 590. 2x6 is approximately, they're trading about the same. But you can pick off deals on that. I mean, one thing like 2x6 10s have been, when I say 10s, 2x6 116s, those have been trading pretty inexpensive, and part of that is because there's a lot of Euro 2x6 116 sitting in the the Port of Houston, so that it does affect, even though a lot of jobs and jobbers and this and that can't use that or whatever, but the run of the day stuff, you run into that. So
is some of that Houston 2x4? Can you ship some of that 2x4 and 2x6 116s back into the southern, like Indiana and those type of places?
I personally don't own any. We're running into it, but I would think some of that would eventually start stretching.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to take them out of the market. Get them away. As far away as you can. But I mean, those you guys kind of hit the value items.
So let's use this as an opportunity. We already talked about our finger joint bar. Do you have anything in any areas that you're looking to for people to call you on to move?
Yeah, we have some wides, which seems like everybody else kind of has these, but 2x10 16s, 2x12 16s, Euro spruce out of Baltimore. Give me a shout. We have some things we need to clean up. When I say clean up, it's not old wood. It's just we're over inventory. So.
Okay. Well, shit, you took the first one I was going to say.
No, hey guys, I appreciate you guys having me on. Like I said, I told you guys, I a lot of times I don't catch you guys live, but I catch your you guys put out good content. So
it's great having you, Bart. And hey, have a great summer, man. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the fall.
Yeah, we'll hopefully have you on before in the next few weeks again.
Yeah, I got 4 weeks before we start daily doubles. So I got 4 weeks to look at my golf clubs. So anyway, I coach. I'm on the freshman football staff at Sherwood High School here locally. So we got 4 weeks before we start doubles. So
good. That's good. That's good
that's
stuff.
Awesome.
That's good stuff. All right, guys. Cheers. Take care.
Thanks,